Hey everyone, it's so great to have you along for this encore edition of Chats with Jason. Today we're featuring an episode that I recorded a couple of years back with Amy McLaren. She's the author of Passion to Purpose. She's an entrepreneur. She's founded a charity that's helping educate children in Kenya and so much more. It's a really inspiring conversation I had with her, and I'd certainly encourage you to have a listen and, of course, pick up her book. Enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, and welcome to the 1% Difference Show with me, your host, Jason S. Bradshaw. The 1% Difference Show is here for you, to help you stand out and succeed. A 1% extra focus on customer experience, employee experience, brand experience, product experience. Your business or your life is all the difference it takes. Today's guest is definitely going to get you inspired and help you find or reconnect with your purpose. Our guest today is a busy mum of two who splits her time between leading Lady Strength, a growing online community of driven entrepreneurial women, growing an Airbnb business, and being a hands-on CEO at Village Impact, the charity that she and her husband founded more than a decade ago. Village Impact partners with communities in rural Kenya to provide community-led access to quality education and entrepreneurship opportunities. To date, Village Impact has built 14 schools that deliver education to nearly 5,000 students daily. Today's guest is the one and only Amy McLaren. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
It's great to connect with you after following you online for what feels like a long time, but in reality, it's only been a year or so. And I'm so grateful for that. Amy, I think there's some listeners that are probably already feeling exhausted after that intro. A mum of two or three different ventures. The thought of running an Airbnb alone is making me feel exhausted. But would you mind sharing with the audience a bit more about your background and the journey that got you to write the book Passion to Purpose, which we'll talk about soon. But where's your journey up to today?
Yeah. So first of all, I totally agree. It sounds completely exhausting. But I will tell you that is not overnight. Like what I'm doing now has been the result of me following things that I'm passionate about and one thing leading to another that has built on to another. So I am multi-passionate. As you know, I have my Airbnb business, my nonprofit, and my Lady Strength community. But my Village Impact charity really started first. And then came my Lady Strength community a few years later and my Airbnb business just started about a year and a half ago. So that is like a fairly new adventure. So that did not happen overnight. It's definitely over a 10-year period. But in regards to my book and where it came from, it really came from my husband and I speaking a lot on stages and talking about giving back and creating an impact in your daily life and through your business. And we would often get off the stage and I'd have people come up to me and say, I really want to give back. I really want to, but I can't right now. Or, I don't know how to start a nonprofit, or I'm not ready to. And it kind of, after a while, it drove me crazy because I'm like, you don't have to start a big business. You don't have to do what I did and start 3 businesses, start a nonprofit. That's just what I love to do. But you can have an impact today, starting today, by using your passion to do more good. You don't have to do all those things. You can have an impact by, talking, connecting with people in your community, smiling at somebody, giving away a free painting, whatever it may be or what you're passionate about. You can use that as your vehicle to do more good, which then becomes the purpose in your life.
So the new book, of course, is Passion to Purpose. Yeah. Thankfully, the iPad changed there. It was the wrong way. A 7-step journey to shed self-doubt, find inspiration, and change your life and the world for the better. Now, you shared with us that nothing happened overnight. It was
No.
so. How did we get to starting a charity? Other than being on stage for sure, but education, Kenya, that's a long way from Canada.
Yeah, totally. So Let me take you back a few years, back to my roots, I guess, as a child. So I grew up in the UK, and I know I don't sound like I'm from England. I wish I did because all my family is there. It's only my mom, my dad, and my brother that are here in Canada. But you know when you move when you're 10, and I definitely didn't have the confidence my daughter does today. But like I didn't, I kind of would go home and I would start talking the Canadian way, and then over time I lost my accent. But I did grow up in the UK, and my parents were just really good at taking us to volunteer different places. We were always helping people here and there, and that kind of giving back threaded from when I was little into like my teenage years, where I'd go to the shelters with my mom, homeless shelters, and we would help there. I then volunteered at the hospital. And so this kind of giving back continued into my early 20s. And then at university, I was volunteering at like the kids' help phone line, but volunteering again at another hospital, doing all these things. And then also in that combined of giving was my passion for travel and new experiences and learning from other people. Again, starting when I was a little kid or a teenager, where we had the opportunity to travel a lot in Europe. But then once I hit my early 20s, late teens, I really dived into international travel in a big way. And I loved, spending time in refugee camps and getting to know communities and learning alongside them and being part of that community. I mean, I lived with a Thai family for 6 weeks and learned about their culture and like really was immersed in their family. And I just absolutely loved it. And that travel and giving back then led me to actually, funny enough, Teachers College in Australia, where I completed my master's. And I taught up, and this was the most amazing part of my whole trip. I mean, Australia is beautiful, absolutely. But I taught up in an island called Horn Island, up at the top near Papua New Guinea, like around that area with all those little islands. And I taught up there for a while, and I really enjoyed that. And kind of that snowballed into me coming home, traveling some more, and then not settling down, but becoming a teacher. And I talk about this in my book, where I had this journey of being a teacher, and I liked it, but I never loved it. So I always knew that I wanted to get back to this whole travel, giving back piece somehow. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I kept following that. And then one night, and by no means was it this big, glamorous, like, this was the turning point of my life, but it was one night, Stu and I sitting down on a couch on a Friday night, my husband and I, drinking wine, he was having some water, and we were watching Oprah's Big Give. And at that time, 10 years ago, this show was quite big. I enjoyed watching it and seeing this transformation she would have with the community and, go in and help all these people. And I said to my husband, I'm like, that's it. Like, I want to do that again. I want to help. I want to help people. And this was, I think, at the second week of December. So bear in mind, at that point in my life, I'm still a teacher. So I'm still very restricted to what I could do and what I couldn't do and when I could take time off. And this was the second week of December, and he's like, oh, that's great, babes. Like, when do you want to do it? And I'm like, well, Christmas, because like, when else am I going to do it? And there's no way I'm waiting until summer, right? Like, that's an eternity away. So I said to him, I'm like, you know what? You're really good at business. You figure out the business side. I'll organize the details to get this trip organized, and we'll go help somewhere. But I want to do it internationally, because for me and my passion personally is overseas and completely different cultures. And that's part of what lights me up. So I found a contact in El Salvador. We raised some money. We raised about $14,000. We took it down to El Salvador, not literally, but with my, Visa card and debit card. We helped a school down there. We lived with a small community and a family on the top of a mountain in the country there. And we helped an orphanage and we helped a school, and it was amazing. And I felt so lit up. And we came home, and my husband was like, okay, I can kind of see what you're thinking. We did another fundraiser the following year, same format, raised double what we raised the first time. Then we went to Ghana. Ghana was great, but I felt like I was putting a Band-Aid on things, so I had to go back and rejig. And then we ended up in Kenya, where we built our first school. And then in a nutshell, that first school now has turned into 14 schools, and we have great partnerships with the government on the ground and other communities. But it really did start with, one thing after the next. Like, we never had a vision of starting a big nonprofit or starting a charity. We're just people that wanted to help and following things that we love to do. And I kept following that, and one thing led to another. And that's, in a nutshell, how it was started. It began 10 years ago.
It's such an inspiring story. I recall in the book, and I'm not sure where, but there was a trip that you and Stu went on, and there was a young child, a teenager perhaps, that was making something. I can't remember, bracelets perhaps. I can't remember exactly what, but perhaps you could share that story, because I loved how that just showed that it's not about a Band-Aid. It's about actually doing something that changes a community, and it can start with the smallest spark.
Yeah, it's the smallest thing. So that story that I share in my book was actually of the time when we went to Ghana. So we went to El Salvador first, and then our second kind of charity trip, in a sense, was Ghana. And we had just went to the school we were helping. We helped with a whole bunch of things. And I share about this in my book where, it was good, but I felt like we were just helping everywhere and we didn't have like a focus. But on that trip, on the way back, we had just come back from the school community. Sue and I were walking in the city just before our flight left, like that evening. But we were walking down the street, and there's, several vendors. And if many of us have traveled before, maybe before COVID, and you have people come up that try to sell you things, right? And I can give you a good deal. I can give you that. I can give that. And Stu and I were like, no, thank you. No, thank you. And we were actually quite not down in the dumps, but before that, we were actually in a horrific car accident. So we were like really kind of disheveled from everything we'd experienced in the car accident. We're walking down the street. We just wanted to get something to eat, get to the hotel, get on the plane, and come home. And so we're walking down the street, and this little boy is like, I'm going to give you a good deal. I'll give you a good deal. And Stu's a bit more of a negotiator than I am. And he's like, what kind of good deal are you going to give me? And he's like, I'll make you 3 bracelets for one. And so this little boy named King William had these bracelets that he was making. And Stu and I were like, okay, but we're leaving in 2 hours. Is that enough time? He's like, oh, no problem, no problem. And we're like, okay. So at that time, we put on, our charity was World Teacher Aid. So we put WTA, and we asked him to put those on those 3 bracelets. And we kind of go in this restaurant, and he sits down on the side of the road, and he starts making these bracelets, and he's spinning the cotton around and around. Then he gets out his candle and burns the edge so they don't fray. And Stu and I are just amazed, sitting there watching him do these bracelets. I stayed inside, and Stu went out to talk to him. And later on, we asked him, are you going to school, or, what is it? Tell us a little bit about your family. And he's like, well, I did go to school, but now it's time for my siblings to go to school. I've had my opportunity, but now it's time for my brother and my sister. And we're like, well, how much are your school fees? And he said $80, I think it was $80 or $100. And we were like, wow. And then we came back, and then Stu and I chatted a little bit maybe how we could support him. And then we went back out to talk to him again, and he's showing us his bracelets. But then he also brings out a copy of his report card. And he's showing us his report card from 2 years ago about how he went to school and how he loved school, and his face was lighting up. And we're like, wow, what kid, my daughter, maybe it's a bit of an exception because she just loves reading and writing, but most kids don't carry around their report cards and are all excited about school, right? So we look at this report card, and it was he'd only missed so many days, and and he starts telling us about subjects he's enjoyed, and we're like, okay. So we're like, King William, which is his name. We said, if we give you $100 for your schooling, we will pay, but we need you to send us your report card, and you have to maintain a certain average, and we'll continue to pay your education. He's like, oh yes, and he was so excited, and we're like, that's awesome. And then not really knowing what will happen with that, if it will pan out, if we'll ever hear from him again. But we did say, use that $100 for school, nothing else. It has to go to school fees. And then 4 at the clock, 6 months later, 7 months, I was teaching, and then Stu was at home. And at this time, we didn't have iPhones or FaceTime. And he calls me when I was teaching and was like, Amy, on your next break, you've got to call me or call back because I have something to share with you. So I call back at recess, and he has this big package that arrived from Ghana. And the crazy thing is, we opened the package, it's King William's report card. So he shared his new report card with us. And then it was like a whole product line of things he made. So we had bracelets, we had shoes, we had ties, and they were all all color in our right colors for our branding. And then he even had some of them wrapped separately, and he put his email inside the seal so we could give them out and people could contact him. And then it's just crazy. And so, of course, we continued to sponsor him through high school. But the most amazing thing is, and this is where you just never know how you can impact someone's life by the tiniest things you can do. Craziest thing is now today, so he made me 3 bracelets, so many years ago. He's made over, I think we're closing in on 18,000 bracelets he has made for us now for our different charitable events. So before COVID, when we were speaking on stages and having events, a lot of people that attended the event, and if they donated, got a chance to have their own personal bracelet with the company logo on or whatever was happening at that event. But, that one chance meetup has led to him starting his own business, employing a couple of his family members to help him, and then also him going through school.
Yeah, I love that story, and for me it reinforces just the power of education as well. We take education for granted in countries like Canada and Australia. Of course your children's going to go to school, but in many parts of the world, only going to school for part of their life is considered a blessing, let alone completing everything. I love in the story where Stu asked you to authenticate the report card.
I forget about what he did, because like being a teacher for 10 years, he's like, Amy, you got to make sure if it's good. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how? I don't know. This is a completely different country. Who knows?
I was thinking about that as we were getting ready for the podcast for the show today, because I was writing something. I'm like, oh, my report card would say Jason can't write. Some absolutely phenomenal impact that you've had through the work that you do with Village Impact and of course with Lady Strength and the other activities that you undertake. I guess a question that comes up when I talk to people about purpose and passion is it just for a charity? Like, is purpose just about charity? And a lot of your story is about Village Impact, but is the book for someone that's just looking at setting up a charity, or
no, absolutely, yeah. So the book really is, I wrote it with like 3 kind of people in mind, and I know that's like people say in business to niche down, but like this is basically 3 people. Like, it's the first person in life that is like, where you're drifting around, you have no passions, you feel a bit frustrated. And this was me at the beginning, because I would see, and not to compare, but sometimes we do, and you see other people doing all these things that like lights them up and they have direction. And then I was sitting back thinking, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm just going to keep following this one thing. But it's like that person that is drifting. That was the first person I wrote it for. The second was someone that, has kind of lost themselves, and that, they wake up 15 years later, and not literally, like wake up 15 years later and like, how did I get here? Like, this wasn't where I wanted to be. Like, years ago, I had all these intentions and wanted to do this, but all of a sudden life got busy, things happened, and they're at a different spot, but they're not where they wanted to be. So it's for someone that's kind of lost that connection to what they were passionate about over the years. And then the third person I wrote it for is those entrepreneurs and business owners that, want to do more good. We all want to do more good, but I think they get to a point in their business where they don't know how, or are looking for ideas on how to integrate giving back and having an impact within your business. So the book definitely isn't for starting a nonprofit. I use my nonprofit, and my husband and I, as a form of giving back, because it's connected to my passion. It's what I love to do. But we can all have an impact, and it doesn't mean really like connecting to a nonprofit even. Like I think of myself, like for Stu and I, we're really big on experiences and gifting experiences to people. We're very big on that concept because in our family, I would take experiences hands down over money any day, right? Like experiences with my family, do the
Sam.
experiences with my family and like loved ones, close ones, even gifting that to a stranger is part of what we like to do as a family. So that's also giving back. Do you know what I mean? Like taking two of our friends on an epic surprise trip to Fiji was one thing we did, but then it's also paying for a flight for someone to see family. Like there's so many different ways we can give back. It doesn't have to be through a nonprofit. It can be being creative in your own personal life and in your business too. And at the end of the day, it's just, spreading the impact and doing good and just doing more good in the world with the resources that we have.
I absolutely believe in that message. Now, there's 7 steps that you share in your book.
Yeah.
Is there one of those steps that's your favorite?
Yeah, someone else asked me that the other day, and it's so hard to pick because I have 7 steps that I think are all equally important. I think there's stories in each one, but the biggest thing for me is just that I have it's a part called Make an Impact. And so I'm just looking at here so I can share. So I have a part that says Make an Impact. So it's like champion others, give back every day, and keep the why close to your heart. And I mean, it goes with the whole thing behind my book is just getting over that idea that we need to make so much money to make a difference, or we need to start a company to make a difference. Like if we can all focus on things that we love to do and use them as vehicles to do more good or help more people, the world is amazing, but the world would be even more amazing, right? If we just didn't get so hung up on thinking we have to donate millions of dollars or 1,000, like we can show up today with what we have and still make a difference. So that's one of my favorite parts because it talks a lot about legacy too. And legacy is such a big word, right? But it doesn't have to be a big word because it really is the little things that we do every day that creates that legacy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have to say that was probably not a very fair question because when I was preparing for today, I wrote down 2 favorite chapters. But I would have to say if I had to choose one, it would be the section on legacy. And that's because, your legacy can be, is something that you created in a business that you worked in. It can be, your entire life. Obviously, can leave a legacy, and there's heaps of examples of that. But ultimately, you start today. You need to choose to live a purpose-filled life, and that's one of the great messages that come through in Passion to Purpose. Amy, anyone that's listening or watching this show today, how can they get a copy of the book, or perhaps support the charity Village Impact?
Yeah, so to get a copy of the book, you can. First of all, buy it at any Canadian Indigo, so any bookstore that's out there, but you can get it at passiontopurposebook.com. We have it there with some cool bonuses. And then also on my site, Amy McLaren, if you go to amymclaren.com, it has links to all the good stuff about the charity and the business as well.
Fantastic. And we will have links to the book, to Village Impact, and to Amy in the show notes, of course. And one listener, one audience member will also get a complimentary copy of Amy's book. All you have to do is shoot me an email. That's the challenge part, to get a copy of Amy's book wherever you are in the world. Be more than happy to ship a copy. Now, Amy's graciously agreed to stick around for the bonus section, which is free to anyone that subscribes and signs up to the podcast, to the show, at 1%difference.com. But before we jump into that, Amy, one last question for you before the bonus section. What's one thing you would encourage audience members to start doing as soon as they finish listening today?
I would absolutely take a moment by yourself, like completely in a spot that's quiet, no interruptions of kids, business, whatever it may be, and just take a second to check in on yourself and check in on your life and stop and like just take a pen, take a pencil, and just do a tiny bit of journaling. And that, like, you know, it's really just identifying something that you can do to get closer to your passion. So when I say do a check-in on where you're at, like, that could take a bit longer, but just be honest with yourself. I mean, I think when I moved from teacher to entrepreneur, I sat in that spot of doubt and worrying what people would think too long, and I didn't move. And so I just encourage you to really take a moment to think about where you're at. And if there's something you're not doing that you're passionate about and that you've put off, just think about next week. Don't think about 5 years from now, 1 year from now, even 3 weeks from now. What can you do next week that is something that you love to do, something that makes you smile, something that brings you joy that you can put on your calendar? Because when we're truly living, something we're passionate about or what we enjoy, it brings out the best version of who we are. And I want to show up for my kids and for my community and for my husband being the best version of myself. And I accomplish that by choosing joy or choosing something I love to do. So just take a moment, identify maybe something you've left behind or something you haven't made time with, and put it on your calendar for next week for an hour. Whether that's even Googling it or watching a show or calling a friend, like, it can be the tiniest thing, but recognize it and put it on your calendar next week. No, not next month, not next year, next week.
I absolutely love that. It's about getting something done and reconnecting with that passion and bringing some joy back. Of course, inside the book Passion to Purpose, there are some excellent examples on how you can go deep and to reconnect with your passion and find your purpose again. Amy, thanks for being on this part of the show. I look forward to diving into the bonus section with you in just a moment. And of course, for our audience members, there is all the links to Amy, to her book Passion to Purpose, and Village Impact in the show notes and on the website. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to share a copy of Amy's book with one audience member. Remember, you just have to reach out to me directly and be the first to do so to get your copy. Thanks very much. And until next time, remember, you can make a difference. You just need to make the decision to do so.